Nobody expected a simple conversation about turning 50 to become one of the most memorable moments on The View. The audience came expecting Hollywood stories and laughs, but by the end of the interview, they were listening in complete silence as Colin Farrell shared a perspective on life that few saw coming. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Star Narrator, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable celebrity interviews and TV moments. Now, let's see what really happened. The cameras rolled as Whoopi Goldberg welcomed viewers with her signature smile. Sitting beside her were Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and the rest of the panel. Please welcome Colin Farrell. The audience erupted into applause as Colin walked onto the stage, greeting Whoopi with a warm handshake before taking his seat. "It's always wonderful to have you here," Whoopi said. "It's lovely to be back," Colin replied with a smile. From the very beginning, the conversation felt relaxed. Rather than rushing into questions about his latest project, Whoopi decided to start somewhere more personal. "So," she asked with a grin, "you've officially joined the 50 Club. How does it feel?" The audience laughed, waiting for his response. Colin leaned back and smiled. "Honestly, it feels pretty good." That answer surprised many people. Most celebrities speak about aging with hesitation, but Colin looked completely comfortable. "I've stopped worrying about the number," he explained. "I appreciate where I am in life much more than I used to." Whoopi nodded. "I think that's something a lot of people can relate to." Colin admitted that when he was younger, he was always focused on what came next. Every project had to lead to something bigger. Every success was followed by another goal. But eventually, he said, you realize life isn't just about chasing the next thing. The audience applauded. Whoopi smiled. "So what matters now?" Colin didn't hesitate. "My family. My friends. My health. Just being present." His answer earned another round of applause. Sunny Hostin leaned forward. "Do you think getting older has actually made life better?" Colin smiled. "In many ways, yes." He explained that experience had given him perspective. He no longer felt pressure to prove himself every day. "I still love acting," he said. "But I don't measure my life only by work anymore." Whoopi looked genuinely impressed. "That's a healthy place to be." "It took me a while to get there," Colin admitted, making the audience laugh. The conversation then shifted toward his career. Whoopi asked whether he still felt nervous starting a new project after all these years. Colin laughed. "Absolutely." The audience seemed surprised. "If I stop feeling nervous," he explained, "it probably means I'm not challenging myself." Whoopi nodded. "So the nerves are actually a good thing." "I think so," Colin replied. "They remind me that I still care." The audience applauded once again. As the interview continued, Colin spoke about choosing projects that truly meant something to him instead of simply chasing success. "I've learned it's okay to say no," he said. "Time becomes more valuable." Whoopi smiled knowingly. "That's wisdom." The audience laughed and applauded. The conversation felt less like a celebrity interview and more like friends sharing life experiences. Then Joy Behar slowly picked up one of her question cards. She smiled at Colin before looking toward Whoopi. "I've been waiting to ask this." Whoopi laughed immediately. "Oh, here we go." The audience laughed along. Colin grinned. "Should I be worried?" Joy smiled. "Maybe just a little." The audience erupted with laughter. No one realized that Joy's next question was about to produce the funniest, and perhaps the most unforgettable, moment of the entire interview. The audience was still laughing as Joy Behar looked at Colin Farrell with a playful smile. Even Whoopi Goldberg couldn't help but laugh. "I have to ask this," Joy said. "You've talked about turning 50, and you seem so calm about it. Don't you ever think about the Grim Reaper?" The audience burst into laughter. Whoopi shook her head, smiling. Only Joy could ask a question like that. Colin laughed before giving his answer. "Well, the Grim Reaper's coming for all of us." The studio exploded with laughter and applause. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, laughing so hard she covered her face. "There it is," she joked. Joy pointed at Colin, still laughing. "I knew you'd have an interesting answer." Colin smiled before continuing in a much calmer tone. "I don't say that to be negative." The audience quickly settled down to hear what he meant. "I actually think remembering that life doesn't last forever makes us appreciate today a little more." The room became noticeably quiet. Whoopi nodded. "That's a beautiful way of looking at it." Colin explained that when he was younger, he spent far too much time worrying about the future. The next job, the next success, the next challenge. "But now," he continued, "I enjoy the ordinary moments much more." Sunny Hostin smiled. What kind of moments? Colin answered without hesitation. Having dinner with family. Spending time with friends. Going for a walk. Having a good conversation. He smiled. Those moments stay with me longer than red carpets. The audience applauded warmly. Whoopi looked at him with admiration. I think people need to hear that. Colin nodded. We're always chasing something bigger. But sometimes the little things become the biggest memories. Another wave of applause filled the studio. Joy laughed. You came here to promote a show, and instead you're giving everyone life advice. Everyone laughed, including Colin. I wasn't planning on it. Whoopi smiled. Well, we're glad you did. She then shifted the conversation back toward acting. After everything you've accomplished, what still excites you about taking on a new role? Colin thought for a moment. I love stories that feel honest. He explained that he no longer looked for characters simply because they were dramatic or challenging. Instead, he wanted roles that reflected real people with real emotions. I think audiences connect with honesty, he said. They don't expect perfection. Whoopi nodded. They connect with truth. Exactly, Colin replied. The audience applauded again. As the applause faded, Whoopi glanced down at one final question card. She smiled before looking back at Colin. We've talked about your past. She paused for a moment. But now I want to ask you about your future. Colin raised an eyebrow with a curious smile. What comes next? The audience leaned forward. Everyone wanted to hear his answer. The audience leaned forward as Whoopi Goldberg smiled at Colin Farrell. We've talked about your past, she said. Now let's talk about the future. What excites you most about what's still ahead? Colin took a moment before answering. When I was younger, I always believed happiness was waiting somewhere in the future, he said. There was always another goal to reach. He smiled. But now I've realized life isn't about constantly chasing the next thing. The audience listened quietly. I'm happy doing meaningful work, Colin continued. But I'm just as happy spending time with the people I love. Whoopi nodded with a smile. I think that's called finding balance. It took me a long time, Colin admitted. The audience applauded. Sunny Hostin leaned forward. So what does success mean to you now? Colin smiled. Success is going to bed knowing you've been kind. The audience immediately broke into applause. He continued. If you've treated people with respect, been there for your family, and done work you're proud of, that's a successful day. Whoopi looked genuinely touched. I love that answer. Joy Behar laughed. That's a much better definition than Hollywood usually gives us. Everyone laughed together. Whoopi then asked one final question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Colin smiled thoughtfully. I'd tell him to stop worrying so much. The audience grew quiet again. I spent years stressing over things that never actually happened. I'd tell myself to enjoy the present a little more. Whoopi nodded. That's advice all of us could use. Joy couldn't resist one last joke. And maybe tell your younger self not to worry about the Grim Reaper just yet. The audience burst into laughter. Colin laughed along. Yes, I'd definitely tell him that. Even Whoopi couldn't stop laughing. As the laughter settled, Whoopi turned to Colin with a warm smile. Thank you for being so honest with us today. Colin nodded. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. The audience rose to its feet, giving him a standing ovation as he shook hands with Whoopi and waved to the crowd before leaving the stage. What began as a conversation about turning 50 ended with something much more meaningful. There were no dramatic arguments or shocking revelations, just an honest discussion about gratitude, family, purpose, and appreciating every stage of life. Sometimes the most unforgettable interviews aren't the loudest. They're the ones that remind us to slow down, value the people around us, and make the most of every day. And that's exactly what Colin Farrell's appearance on The View accomplished. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe to the Star Narrator, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable celebrity interviews and television moments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.